I'm not sure how to talk about this exactly, but something like intellectualizing emotions, whether it be your own or someone else's. Although maybe, if you do it to yourself, you're probably also doing it to someone else. And it's the whole trying to make a framework of emotions. Emotions don't really have an actual concrete definition or form or structure to them. We kind of have to in order to talk about it. We gotta talk about our emotions and share how we're feeling and all that. Although you don't necessarily need words. Sometimes facial gestures, just nonverbal cues also work pretty good. But, we're usually talking about them, but you can avoid really thinking into your emotions if you try to intellectualize them, really trying to get a concrete definition of what is sad. Like if you had this pretty rigid example of sadness being something's gone wrong, something's bad, this doesn't feel good, then anytime this sensation comes up and you label it as sad, you're kind of stuck in this intellectualized version of what's happening. And you're more interested in the idea of what's happening. And when you're more interested in the idea, that's where you can get caught in the idea that this experience should be fixed or changed. And that causes a whole lot of suffering. And something more direct would be you can still have the framework if you need to communicate it to someone, but the framework's less rigid. It's a lot more open, a lot more allowed to be interpreted. Kind of like you're trying to share, but not concretely. You're trying to get the other person to feel what you're feeling compared to trying to get them to intellectually get it. And you're more open to actually feeling what you're feeling and what may be uncomfortable, but without the uncomfortable label can actually be quite pleasant. Because when there's a thought belief that this is unpleasant or this needs to be changed or it needs to feel better, then you're back trying to intellectualize something that's not actually intellectual. You've gone out of your body and back into your head. And it really takes a willingness to let go of the ideas of what you're feeling and just feel what you're feeling and really get in touch and communicate in a way where you're talking in a way that's expressing how it feels while not trying to define exactly what it is. It's a lot more open. It's very vulnerable because you're not trying to figure it out, but there's still that sense of I'm trying to share something that's immediate and that's experiential instead of this textbook definition of, oh, I'm sad. That means something bad happened or there's something that's gone wrong. Usually, when you're in your head, there's this framework of events of this is the reason I'm sad or this is how I fix it compared to I am feeling sad. And you can kind of just you kind of drop the framework. You can still kind of point your fingers to things on why you feel this way, but you're not blaming anything that you're pointing towards. There's no, that's why I'm the way I am or the way I feel this way. And it's more of a, it's, I wish I could do this with another person and just kind of do a live demonstration, but I don't really have anyone for that. It's more of a, just saying, hey, I'm sad that, oh, I don't know why the light's getting brighter, but I'm not trying to blind myself. It's more of a opening of how you're feeling and really trying to put words into what's felt instead of trying to intellectualize a problem that needs to be solved. you can still have that mental framework, because sometimes you gotta assert and have boundaries so people know what they are, but they're not that rigidness of, if I don't get what I want, then I suffer for it. A bit more open of just sharing, this is where I'm at right now. And it gives space for other people to meet you where you are right now, as opposed to trying to fix or solve you, like as if you were some sort of problem, or if you're feeling deficient or incomplete. Because when you're intellectualizing, there's always this sense of something can change, something can be fixed, something could be better. There's something wrong, there's something not quite good enough yet. And yet, when you come from a place where you don't feel deficient and you already feel whole, you can actually be more engaged in a way where you can still try to solve a problem, but it doesn't come from that place of neediness or lacking. It's a lot more open, and there's actual space to see what's actually going on, instead of defaulting to this idea of something's wrong, something's bad, and how do we fix it. And it's much more open to, something just feels off. Let's really share what's happening so we can get a clearer, I'm hesitant to say the word image, because you might think of that as like an idea in your head, but it's more of a clearer seeing of whatever's happening. And just really authentically coming from an empty place that's kind of like, we're not really sure what to do, but we're sharing, and we're gonna see if something kind of just naturally and spontaneously just shows up on its own, and we're just gonna follow that. That doesn't mean it's gonna get fixed. It might not get fixed. It's more of an openness just to see how we can let things unfold naturally and authentically. And sometimes the most natural and authentic thing is, hey, I think we need a plan of action. Even if it's very intellectual, you can be very intellectual, but come from this really connected and deep emotional space where it's coming from an authentic spot, as opposed to this mental, something needs to be fixed or because something is wrong. It's more of a, let's try to come together in a way that's safe, authentic, and honest. And we can use our mind, because that's a very helpful and useful tool. But it doesn't come from this place of lack or need or blame. And it's just a really vulnerable spot where you're not afraid of being judged or turned away. And if you are, you're okay with it. You can still be sad, you can still feel hurt, but there's none of this blame either on the other person or yourself, because there's no one specifically to blame. It isn't about someone's character, your identity, their identity. It's just this openness without this idea of me or you, just feeling into this really felt sense of what is honest right now. And you can't really get into this deep, authentic place if there's always this idea of how I should be or how you should be, or how we should make this intellectual idea of who we are, and how do we rise to this intellectual, very thought out, very impersonal, because it's really thought based instead of very experiential idea of ourselves. Like this ideal, this enlightened, this perfect, this can do no wrong image in our heads, and just stepping back and just being, what is authentic, what feels genuine, and going from there. And you don't know what's really going to happen from there, because if you have an idea, you're going back into your head. And yet there's no resistance to having a very laid out plan if that's how you naturally are. Because some people just like structure, some people don't. Sometimes people will, sometimes people won't. Even that, you can't say for sure. You're empty enough where you can't lean on either completely open or structured, because you don't even have the idea of one is better than the other. It's just what is authentic right now. And if the most authentic thing right now is I need a safety net that's a bit more intellectual, that's perfectly fine too. Because you got to reach the spot that's open to everything, open to even being closed off, because there's no resistance to being closed off, and there's no resistance to being in your head. But you've also got to reach this spot where if you are in your head, there's no resistance to it, but there's a complete and total conscious acknowledgement of, hey, I'm kind of sinking into my head right now. But you don't make it a bad thing, even if it's like spiritually, like, oh, people are talking about you gotta escape your mind and all that. It's just, if that can happen, but you're also very conscious of it, there's already some space that you're not in your head. I mean, even if it's happening, but there's no identity, or you're not getting caught with this system of being stuck in your head. And you're still open, because you're not resisting being stuck in your head. It's really weird. It's like it's happening, but there's enough distance where there's no identity being taken from these actual thoughts in your head. I don't know if my rambling's making sense. But yeah, like when you talk to someone and you share yourself, and they kind of put you in a bubble, like you're kind of like this, or your type is this is what you are. It can feel very limiting, but it can also be very safe because it takes away that vulnerability of not being able to really predict what's going to happen, not really being able to be open. You're kind of closed off and narrow to this idea of what I think this person is, or even what I think I am. And it takes a lot of authenticity and really being able to inhabit that very vulnerable, tender space. Because with the mind, what retreating into the mind, the safety net of creating this idea of a self or what I'm like or what I should be is it gives you that, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't really remember what the word is, but I was gonna think of saying consistency. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank here. I don't remember words pretty well anymore, especially when I don't really wonder how to improve my speech or anything. But I'm still talking because, well, I'm not really afraid to be vulnerable. I'm just here. But yeah, that mental structure really just, it's just a safety net to avoid feeling. Because feeling can feel unsafe because it's unpredictable, but you gotta get into that sensual, very in your body sense that has no underlying form or identity or no way things are supposed to be, and so vulnerable and so open where you just don't know anymore, and you're okay with that not knowing. Anyways, I think I've babbled on long enough. So the short end of it would be is really being connected to your sensation, your emotions, your body, and the direct experience of what's happening, and not being caught up. That doesn't mean you can't use an intellectual framework, but don't get caught up in the ideas of what is thought to be real, and be more curious about the actual lived, felt experience of what's happening. And it can include the intellectualization, but you're not identified or stuck in it. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye.